Hello, friends. Welcome to Pod Maverick After Dark. I'm Kirk Henderson, joined once again by Josh Bowe. We are editors over at mavsmoneyball.com. Thanks so much for hanging out with us tonight. You are joining us just before midnight on Saturday, December 28th. The Dallas Mavericks just lost to the Portland Trailblazers 126-122. Josh, how are you?
I'm tired. I think you're tired too. Yeah, that was a game. I think it was at least competitive in the end, and they made it interesting because I joked when I sent you that message on Twitter, like, should we just record at halftime? Because it was really looking like that kind of game. So they did a little bit. They're late to at least give us something to talk about, but otherwise, pretty much this result went as everyone expected after the suspension news came down this afternoon.
Right. We should probably lead with that. So the NBA waited until about 3 p.m. Central Standard Time to announce the suspension of PJ Washington 1 game, Najee Marshall 4 games, Yusuf Nurkic 3 games. I didn't realize till later that Najee got suspended and his suspension was pushed to 4 games, which is the biggest of the 3 players, because he kept going after, like, he kept the let's just say the fracas, the kerfuffle, the fricassee, the Donnybrook, whatever the fuck you want to call their fight. He kept going after it in the tunnel behind, and closer to the locker room after they exited the floor. So that in itself explains why he got that extra game. There's a lot of curious thoughts that I think are well-founded as to whether his kind of hilarious social media antics got Najee Marshall an extra game. I don't really have any thoughts there. I'll just simply say that it probably didn't help. Didn't mean it wasn't really funny, though. And so you run into that. Like, PJ Washington getting a game is a reminder that the NBA is headed up by cowardly asshats who don't know what they're doing and don't understand how conflict resolution is actually solved. I'm sorry. You go watch that fucking fight again. Yusuf Nurkic ends up on his ass, and that takes the gusto out of what he was going for.
Like, yeah, if anything, that made the situation better. Like, it
PJ stands for peacemaker justice. Okay, that's what happened here. So the NBA, as usual, can go fuck itself. But here we are. These are the cards that were dealt with. The Mavericks are down 4 rotation players because Derek Lively, Mr. Glass, once again did not play, and the Mavericks just came out and looked. They looked like, in follow-up cup referring to it. This is game 2 of a 4-game road trip. They traveled from Arizona to Portland. It's a ton of miles, but it's not like they flew southwest in the middle of the night. So I get kind of tired of this shit. Like these guys, like I guarantee you, these guys' plane accommodations is nicer than my house. So I'm not that interested in that discussion. That said, travel is not easy on the body. That is an actually much more interesting conversation that I'm willing to have. And so, you go from one night to the next. And so the guys looked a little tired. They played unbelievably sloppy in the first quarter, which has, in the month of December, has been a hallmark, if we're honest, if we're looking at this stuff. There was one rebound early in the quarter where Daniel Gafford stopped someone. It might have been Denny Advija at the rim, where Advija gets into his body and basically pushes Gafford under the backboard. The ball rims out, and there's no one in the lane to grab it. Like, no one. So the ball rolls out from the lane to the Trailblazers. And it's like, guys, what are we doing? What are we doing?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it was a bad, it was there. My theme of this podcast is this is really not that big a deal in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, that first quarter was pretty disheartening in a couple of ways.
Mm-hmm. So if you're kind of person where, okay, so the Mavericks then proceeded to, they're down double digits early, and they just sort of stay at double digits. And every time they make a play, they then get buried the next opportunity that Portland has. The Mavericks didn't really close the lead at all. they got it down to like 8 or 9 points. And then all of a sudden it would be 12, 16, 18 points again. And it was, they just did that, again, they did not have the horses. One of the things that very much frustrates me about this game, and I said this in the Slack, so I feel like repeating it before I forget. We spent a good chunk of the podcast from yesterday after the break talking about how Klay Thompson was in a much better role suited to his position. And then you lose Najee Marshall. Derek Lively's not on the floor. Maxi Kleba ends up being the center because because Gafford, kid doesn't trust him to play good enough defense. Don't really blame him, quite honestly. The 5 blocks that Gafford made, some of them, it's like if you block it to the other team, it's not that helpful. Sorry. And so he has Maxi out there. Klay ends up being the second biggest Maverick for a significant portion of this game. With how small the Mavericks were forced to go because they just don't have forward options. And Klay was fried chicken. He was fried chicken. The missing of shots was annoying, but also that happens. Defensively, the Mavericks had him out on an island, and Advija was getting past him with one dribble moves, the way I used to scream about Dorian Finney-Smith getting cooked to death. Like that was a painful Klay game. I feel bad for him because, again, second night of a back-to-back, 35 years old. He's trying to bear a heavier load, and he just couldn't do it.
Yeah, I get it. I don't know if I feel bad. If I feel bad for him, if only because I think the only thing about this game that was disappointing to me was when you're this shorthanded. Obviously, the expectation is you're going to lose the game, and anything that doesn't anything different from that is a nice, healthy surprise. So again, the result is not that big a deal. But when you're in these situations where you're down so many of your starters and regular rotation guys, you're down 3 starters. You're down 3 starters, and then one of your
key
top 7
guys,
not in Najee. Obviously, you're going to start playing guys that don't normally play. Jaden Hardy plays 17 minutes. Jazian Gortman plays 5. Dwight Powell plays 8. Omax Prosper plays 13.
Can't wait to talk about Hardy.
I know. You're chomping.
His stat line is so fucking fake.
I know. But like at the end of the day, though, I don't see the healthiness in getting that mad at those guys. Not to steal your thunder, Kirk, but because those are the guys that you're not going to count on when things are right. Like the fact that your 13th, 14th, 15th man can't contribute when you need them in a real game that matters, that's not the end of the world. That's kind of what every NBA team has, unless you're like the Boston Celtics or the Oklahoma City Thunder. That part's not a big, you're putting these guys into a tough situation. You're thrusting them in here. You hope something happens. It doesn't. Well, that's why they're at the end of the bench, right? That's why they don't play when you have your full complement of guys. The thing that I don't feel about Klay is Klay's one of the guys that needs to contribute. Like if you're this shorthanded, okay, you've got Klay, Kyrie, and Gafford, who are 3 of your top, eight guys. Only Kyrie showed up, and Gafford's stat. You talk about a stat line that doesn't that
Gafford got subbed out early.
You remember that? Yes, because he missed that box. He missed the box out. Gafford had 5 defensive rebounds in 28 minutes against a bad Portland team who plays DeAndre Ayton, who Gafford ate up a few games ago, by the way, and Donovan Clingan, who's very talented but a rookie. And Gafford had 5 defensive rebounds in 28 minutes. Portland out rebounded the Mavericks all game. They had 14 offensive rebounds. That was key to them establishing a lead early on. And he was bad. He was bad defensively. Ayton ate him up. That's a guy it's like, okay, the chips are down. Can we get, it'd be one thing if they went down swinging with all their vets that were still available playing well. And then you come up short because, again, you lose the minutes that Prosper plays, or you lose the minutes Hardy plays, or Powell plays. But they held their ground, actually, when those guys played, for the most part. It wasn't great, but they did okay. But Gafford didn't have it, and Klay didn't have it, and that's the part that's a little disappointing, because it's like you expect those end of the bench guys to not necessarily contribute in a situation like this because it's not expected. But like, you would hope that you would get something from the vets that you actually have. So that part's a little disappointing. And Clay's game was disappointing, not only because he missed some open shots, which is what happens, but he took 4 mid-range jumpers, seemingly kind of calling his own number at times in the fourth quarter in these screen and roll situations, which I don't know if he's calling his own number or if that's what the coaching staff is calling out. But like, I don't know, that's young man Clay's game, maybe. Like that, just seeing him take the shot selection there was a little weird. It almost
3 of 9 from 2 is not a thing.
Yeah, that's not great. And a lot in, like, again, 4 of those were long 2-pointers, which he doesn't need to be taking a ton of those, I wouldn't think. But again, with no Luka to create stuff, that makes everything a little bit harder for everyone else. So I kind of get it, but like that was disappointing. He missed a wide open corner 3 after Kyrie made like 3 impossible shots in a row that really felt like it stalled out the momentum in the fourth quarter. That was disappointing. And you were just hopeful because he'd been playing well going into this game, and you were like, okay, can he keep it up when they really need it? And unfortunately, wasn't able to do it.
I'm not even going to throw in a commercial break for this one. Not enough people are going to listen.
I don't think anyone is going to.
I don't think anybody's going to listen to this bad boy. It's just very funny.
Maxi Kleber immediately erasing his goodwill. And
33 minutes,
really funny.
Nothing. Exemplified by the play at the very end where they get him the ball.
Oh my God, like, Kirk.
Oh no. Jesus Christ. No, I can't have the ball. Fuck no. I'm going to give it to Clay. Only for Clay, I love you, bro. You try to pass over 7'1" DeAndre Ayton. What do you think is going to happen?
To be fair, Maxi gave him a hand grenade. Like that was insane.
Horrible.
You need a quick shot, and Benduity pings it to him in the corner, and it's just like
he becomes
gotta shoot it, man.
The Cowardly Lion from Wizard of Oz, like no player I have ever seen.
And he was barbecue chicken at the rim.
And I have less of a. I have tougher because it's like you're down all your size, and the Mavericks, they weren't running like. I don't really think it was a true drop, but
they're running a lot of zone.
The Blazers have some really good downhill players. Like you don't give Anthony Simon opportunity to get a step. You don't give Shaedon Sharpe a step. And those two were 17 of 36 from the floor, and it showed for 45 points.
There wasn't much for Maxi to do when it was basically like uncontested drives he was having to meet at the rim.
And
so
look,
you're right.
That's the chat is like, why isn't Gafford out there? And I'm like, guys, did you watch the rest of the game where Gafford got his ass kicked? Like there are no good choices here. Do you want evil Dwight in the game? Is that your other choice? I mean, maybe.
I saw some commentary about like kid doesn't have these guys ready. Like, what's he doing? Like, and I'm like, this is not the kid. I get it. But this is not the game for that. He's down this many players in his rotation. I actually thought, like, I in our Mavs Moneyball Slack, some of our staff was like, why is he subbing these guys out in and out so often? Like, why is he experimenting? Like, what's he doing? And I'm like, I think he's just trying to find some guys that want to play, because I think Gafford came out when he missed that box out early on, and Portland got another second chance point. Like, I don't think that was him like trying to do some weird subbing stuff. I think that was him pissed off that Gafford couldn't grab a rebound, and he wanted to put someone in there that would try. Like, I think that's what was going on in the first half.
Gafford is another guy with a fake stat line. You pointed out how he had 5 defensive rebounds. I bet if you were to go back and look, you pointed out how many he had at one point during the middle of the third, and I started watching, and he had at least 2 and potentially 3 that were like, he was the only person that it was the ball came to him. Like, it was not like a contested box out. It was like an end of shot clock heave or a free throw, or the ball bounces towards him, and if he doesn't get it, he shouldn't be allowed to play basketball kind of rebound. Like, he's just not a good defensive rebounder. Like,
And that was kind of on him before, like, coming.
That's not a today thing. That is here is why he's not a regularly starting center. Now, for a backup center,
he's fine.
He gives you what you want. He just this, Ayton is an interesting. And I don't even think I talked about this last night. Like you guys, I'm sure heard the broadcast talk about Greg Oden going to talk to the Blazers. Chauncey Billups didn't coach this game. Greg Oden just happened to be there. If you guys don't know what's gone on with Greg Oden since he was drafted and since he exited the league, I really recommend reading up on it. He is a guy that has gone through some shit. A lot of it is his own fault, but he has gone through some serious challenges. And so I just had this bizarre, very Kirk-brained take, which was he's going to inspire DeAndre Ayton, whose greatest set of adversity was like not being able to get out of an icy driveway when he was first traded to Portland. Like Ayton is the classic, born on third base thinking he hit a triple kind of player. And he's been a classic, monstrous disappointment. And of course he came out and kicked the shit out of Dallas this game. I was so mad.
That was pretty funny. But if that's what it takes for Ayton to look awesome, is playing against this front line, like that kind of says something too, which is kind of funny. But I mean, yeah, he did his job. He worked everyone that was on the floor for sure.
This is where I just know we watch different sports. So from a new commenter, he's saying Gafford didn't get his butt kicked. They kept allowing Ayton to shoot practice shots instead of put a body on him. Who was guarding Ayton? It was Gafford. Jesus Christ! What are you talking about? I'm just kidding, man. It doesn't
even
matter.
Then, like the rebound, the rebounding stuff alone, even if you don't want to, even if you think maybe the decisions of where Gafford was defensively on the floor, that's not on him. I mean, the rebounding stuff was not.
I mean, that's just a team thing. Like my take before in the middle of the game was there are often easy rebounds that Luka goes and gets. And I think sometimes these guys have brain farts where they're like, oh, yeah, that Luka's going to get that one. So it bounces once more than it ought to. And then the other team's like, well, I'm going to go take it. I don't know.
Man, there was one rebound that Grimes got in the first half. And it was after a sequence where Portland had gotten a few, because they got a lot of offensive rebounds in the first half. Like that's where they kind of really killed them on the offensive glass, was in the first half. That's kind of how they built that big lead. And it was after a few sequences where the Portland was getting a bunch of offensive rebounds and no one could rebound on the Mavericks. And then Portland misses another shot, and Grimes has to come from the 3-point line to get this rebound that's in the paint, where Gafford is just kind of standing next to his man, not putting a body on him. And if Grimes didn't come in and grab the rebound, Gafford's man would have gotten another offensive rebound. And I was just sitting there like, I mean, are you guys jet lagged? Like, is I understand there's a lot of travel and second night, like that's the part, that just stinks. But again, they got it down to a 5-point game in the fourth. Mainly that's because Kyrie put the team on his back in a way that, like, we've definitely seen Luka do more than a handful of times over the last 5 years. Like that was a pretty special fourth quarter. And if I know there's a couple of more things you want to talk about, but we haven't even mentioned how insane Kyrie was tonight.
Well, and that's kind of the next thing that we this is one of these games where it's annoying that they lost. We probably should have talked about Kyrie earlier, but then you start talking about Kyrie and what do you do other than go, holy shit.
Yeah, I know. I mean, the back-to-back shots were he kind of bounced in a billion times, a 3-pointer and then that midi. It's a shame that this kind of went in vain, and especially because Kyrie has kind of shot the ball poorly for about a week, at least on threes. He's 40% for the month, but he's had some weird clunky 3-point shooting games in the last 2 weeks, I'd say. And again, it's more the standard he sets, because his shooting has been
every
so
shot
absurd.
looks like it's going in.
Yeah. So when he has a couple of bad games, it's oh, he's in a slump, but it's you look at the big picture, it's no, that's normal. But for Kyrie, it just felt like a slump, and he was 6-21 in Phoenix. And we said, after that first quarter, he just looked like he was out of gas, and we both speculated that he was probably not going to play tonight because they just needed to give him a night off, and this felt like such a schedule loss. I think the Mavs broadcast even hinted that he would probably not play this game. And like for him to play, he played 39 minutes. He made about 62% of his shots, 46 points. Like I know it's Portland and they don't really have anyone that can guard on the perimeter when they play Simons and Sharp and Scoot a bunch of minutes at their guard positions. But like that was like, sounds like hyperbole, but that was like that was a heroic effort. And I saw some people wondering like, why would you even play Kyrie? Like this was a scheduled loss. This was a chance to rest him. You were going to lose this game anyway. This is the part of basketball that like we can't quantify this, but like this has to mean something to the guys in the locker room to see him gut out this kind of performance and try to will the team to a win. And like you wonder, you talk about like leadership and intangibles and stuff that we can't qualify on a stat sheet, and we can't, use net rating, or we can't use a formula. Like this is the kind of night that Kyrie can look back to when he's talking to someone trying to, either rally the team, or if he needs to say something where he feels like the team isn't focused. Putting in nights like tonight, that's how you gain that clout and respectability to be able to talk and be a leader and say shit when things aren't going bad. So like I thought that mattered probably way more. And who knows, like if Kyrie, strains his hamstring in the next game, people are going to be like, well, he shouldn't have played 80 minutes in a back-to-back that the Mavericks, like I know that's going to happen. That's going to happen if he gets hurt, but I also see the other end of it. Like we're not in those locker rooms. We don't know how chemistry and vibes work from the outside looking in. And I just have to imagine that him doing this tonight matters and adds to that respectability and clout that you need to lead a long 82-game season.
Yeah. Anything. This is tough for me because I think if you play that way, if you're super concerned, then it starts to become a self-fulfilling prophecy when guys actually get hurt. Yeah. He wants to keep playing. They'll find a way. I mean, if Najee Marshall was in this game, this stuff is different. That's just sort of how I feel about it. PJ Washington to a degree too. They just need more ball handling. But Kid has a tendency to over-rely on guys he knows, which is why I had a problem with the Spencer Dinwiddie signing to begin with. And like, if we're, in the chat, I'm kind of arguing about Gafford versus Maxey. And it's much more of an indictment on what Kid goes to more than anything else than like the players. Because you just know he's going to go to Spencer. You just know he's going to go to Maxey. Like there's certain, like Dwight Powell has at least worked his way out of that conversation because it's year 370 of Dwight Powell, and we know he's not really that good at basketball anymore. And so you wonder what's going to happen with these Kyrie minutes because his options are guys that he does not trust at all. He does not trust at all.
Right.
And that sucks.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, where are you going to go when this many people are playing? Another thing I want to make about the Kyrie point before we get off of it is there's so much conversation about where the NBA is as a whole and the health of the product and what the league needs to do to improve the product, to increase ratings, to increase the entertainment value of it. And I try not to get too into it because I just don't care because I'm not a shareholder. I know that it matters in terms of what we do. Like we can't do this if people aren't paying attention and liking the games. And I get that, but we're so far down on the ladder of all that. Like I can't get.
It's not really our deal.
But one thing is like one thing that I feel very strongly about in regard to this conversation is like, I just don't believe in massive like rule changes and gimmicks to change the tide. My strongest feeling about this is if you feel like the NBA product is lacking, I think it's because they've made the regular season feel like it doesn't matter.
Okay.
Like that to me is the most overarching thing than like too many threes or take away the corner three or make threes worth 1.5 points. Like I don't want to mess I don't want to make rule changes that mess with like the history of the game.
Sure.
Because I like that. I like being able to compare eras and stuff like that. And when you change those kind of rules, you're like marking a line in the sand and like this era versus this. And it just makes it like, I don't know. I like the history stuff and I don't want stuff to change because of that. And I feel like a big thing is, again, just make the regular season matter. And a big part of that has been, stars don't play because they're not hurt, because they're not healthy, or they're trying to maintain their health because guys come into the league a little bit worse for the wear because of youth ball, and because teams have figured out if you rest your players during an 82 game season, they can be more available in playoffs. And it's just made it to where it's like, okay, well, if the players and the teams don't care about this game, why should I care? Why should I watch? And I think that's a big part of everything that's going on. I think we should, like, Kyrie playing is what should happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I get that long term, like what's best for business of the team is that he probably should have sat out. But the NBA is an entertainment product, and if he can play, he should play. And I think that's a big, if more guys took Kyrie's mentality in situations like this, I think that would make help the league in a lot of different ways in terms of making these regular season games feel like they have stakes, feel like they matter. Because this could have been a very easy game for him to blow off. I mean, Portland stinks. Second night of back-to-back, all the travel, teams decimated with injuries and suspensions. So I think it should be we should be celebrating the fact that he played in this game, and not only played, but he felt like at times the only Maverick that gave a shit about the result of the game. So like, to me, we need to be celebrating more instances of this instead of pointing out all this other crap.
He was ridiculous. He was ridiculous. That 3-pointer.
He was diving on the floor for loose balls too. Like, he wasn't just like cherry picking, getting shots up. Like, he was giving it every possession.
I mean, so Rolex in the chat says All-Star Kyrie. I mean, we need to go a step further.
All NBA.
This is an All NBA player. This is a guy who is making an arguable case for All NBA second team. Like second team, not third team, second team. Granted, part of that is because so many guys end up not playing to where I think they're going to have to refigure out these games played things. But Kyrie's incredible. It's got to say something. Now, my opinion doesn't matter. But I mean, look, I was pretty against the trade at the time. He's won me over. It's that simple. Really, I enjoy watching him play basketball. And, when they went, there was this shout out Spencer Dinwiddie for just deciding it's Spencer Dinwiddie time in the fourth quarter. This guy, he hit 2 threes, which boosted his December 3-point shooting percentage from 29% up to 34%. He has been, Spencer was just truly, like, him and Jaden Hardy have these like lying to you stat lines that indicate they were impactful in this game, and they sucked. And I don't like watching. I
get your Hardy take out now, because this is the time to do it when no one's listening.
That's true. No. I mean, look, Hardy had a possession where he got the ball with about, 10 seconds left in the shot clock, top of the key. Actually, it's probably closer out to like where the volleyball line would be in a high school gym. And Jazzy and Gortman is off to his right. No one is near him. No one is near Gortman. And do you remember what Hardy did? He took a contested 3 that did not touch iron. I view those kind of shots as turnovers in terms of what they do, because they're so horrible, they kickstart a fast break. And Hardy, who was at the top of the key, so he was the closest to the opponent's rim, gave up an and one because he loafed back on defense and then got scored over while fouling. I want to believe in Jaden Hardy because I think his irrational confidence is the kind of thing that a team needs in playoff situations. Dallas
saw that in the finals and then the playoffs last year.
But he is not a regular rotation player and never will be until he stops being this stupid. He is not
Oh, go ahead.
He's not as bad as I think he is. He is also not as good as he thinks he is.
A good way to put it. I think it's always a good reminder with Hardy that he was a second round pick for a reason. And the outcomes of second round picks in the NBA, even though it's gotten better as the league has gotten smarter, second round picks don't make it. Like the odds are second round picks are not in the league anymore once their first contract is up, or they're floating around, or they're on a different team, or they're in the G League. So he's kind of like a lottery, like he's a lottery ticket. Like it was a good gamble, and I'm not saying the gamble's over, but like again, sometimes the expectation for him. Go ahead.
You can't make defensive mistakes like he makes. The mistakes that he makes are the kind that get you killed in high school. He's not this. I'm sorry. You keep going.
No. I was just, nothing you're saying is wrong. I just think that there has been an expectation placed upon Hardy that just doesn't feel like he can. That's not, I don't know. And I think it's because, he had such a good, he was what was he in high school? He was like a really top.
At one point, he was rated the number 2 player in the country, which those rating systems are interesting. But
I know they're kind of crazy. And I think before his G League season started, he was projected as a lottery pick.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean that's kind of where it comes from. Is the you think you got a lottery pick with the 37th pick, but he was the 37th pick in that draft for a reason. And I don't know. It's not surprising to me, when I see performances like this, but I
just want more for the guy, because in 17 minutes, he was a -11, and that includes a made 3 with like with 3 seconds left in the game. So it just changes the math here. And I think he can be, he's one of many guys that the Mavericks have that they need guys to step up on off nights. And he's done it already this season. He's had games that were good. And so when he sprained his ankle and he goes down for most of the month, then he comes back, like he had a big 3, like at kind of a key point in the game over over Ayton. And I was like, yeah, okay, that's what I want to see. Like, and then it's like he gets the ball and he gets a chance to shake and bake. And he's like, you know what? I'm going to take a contested step back. It's like, yeah. Well, and then somebody in the chat just said, if you're going to foul, you cannot allow and ones. It's like, yes, the Mavericks gave up how many and ones tonight? Like there was a lot.
There was a lot of and ones.
See, this is just me griping because like we are as close to contractually obligated to stay up late and watch this game. And so it's like, if you're gonna, and so it's like now we're kind of in the nitpicking mode because realistically, this game had no business being as entertaining as it was, considering how often the Mavericks were down for 18. This is just me kind of being a prick at this point.
I thought they were going to lose this game by 35 points after the first 6 minutes of the first quarter.
That's right. And they lost by 4, and Kyrie was exquisite. Spencer Dinwiddie showed us every element of his game. Like nothing. I really love watching Spencer gripe to refs about foul calls. There was one play where he had the opportunity to take a charge on a fast break, and he made the funniest business decision where he just steps the fuck out of the way. It was so funny to watch in real time. So,
yep.
Okay, so the Mavericks play the Kings, and we'll be back for that one. I'm not going to do another fan show for. I'm dying at home, guys. This is not your problem, but like we just haven't had childcare, and it turned out my wife and I did the math. Our infant, he's not an infant, he's now 13 months, has been home 5 out of 8 weeks since November 1st, and like my brain is just mashed potatoes. That's where we are.
That'll do it. This is what is Sacramento. That makes it 3. Yeah, because they played Monday, so that's 3 and 4, third and 4 nights on the road. Boy, then they play. And then they play at Houston on New Year's Day. I will love to see what this Mavericks team looks like after New Year's Day.
I mean, really, Houston. The entire league, they should just not have games on New Year's Eve or New Year's Day. Like, this is insane.
I know.
Did you hear the broadcast say that they're flying to Houston the night before?
Oh, God. Really?
Yeah.
What time are they going to get there?
I'm not sure, but James Harden liked Houston for a reason, is what I'll say.
They should fly to Houston at 11:00 Thursday
PM.
PM Tuesday night. I don't know. Even then, I don't think that would be that would do it. That will be an interesting game because Houston is not a fun team to play. Presumably, when you're fully sober, not hungover. So let's see what that looks like.
I mean, like Luka's going to be like from Dallas. He's going to be like, sorry guys, I have to deal with these guys. Kyrie's going to get swarmed. That game's going to suck.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
All right. Thanks so much for hanging out with us, guys. This has been Mavs Moneyball. This has been Pod Maverick After Dark. We'll see you guys on Monday. Everybody have a good rest of your weekend. Bye, guys.